What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and I'm being joined by the one, the only,
Gersh1.
And today we're back to answer questions from you guys, the viewers, the commenters, in another enticing episode of For the Greater.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put a question in front of your question because we get those questions first.
That is what Tube Pincher has said, done, and might even never get to see his question answered. It really is sad.
Sad.
But before we get to his question, how many of you guys actually see your question get answered and get all hype?
That's true.
Yeah, let us know. His question is, how sentient and or conscious are Genestealer Cultists? Like the ones that basically look human and can pass in society. Do they think and reason like a human, or is it all just instinct from the hive mind?
So they think and act just like a human, and I think you're talking about. I can't remember if it's a hybrid or a neophyte. I want to say it's a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the further you get down the chain of like more, I guess, human looking, like you said, when in reality it could be any race.
Right.
But the further away you get to the appearance of a Genestealer, the more human it is. So
right.
it needs food. It talks like a normal human. It acts like a normal human. It was raised in the society where it existed in, so it's gonna have those customs, which is why you have certain Genestealer cultist models that just are a rip-off of like, you know, a cowboy, or what's the other one? Like a rebel, like gunslinger. Yeah. So that exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have their own personalities. They do their own like things that you and I do. Probably not as much, like, because they still have to listen and obey. What is it? The patriarch? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
So I mean, they do have a sense of freedom and individuality to a certain point. And then obviously if he says, hey, I need you to put a bomb under this hive city, you know, tunnel system or whatever, it's like, well, maybe you're going to miss out on soccer practice that day to do that.
Yeah. But for the most part, the big thing too is like when it's trying to adopt chaos, Genestealers I feel like cannot do that because of that what you said, the patriarch basically telling it like, no, you can't.
Right.
Yeah, that just popped into my head just because I feel like that's kind of what people allude to. Yeah. Good question, though. Next one.
Werewolf Pirate. What if the Mechanicum's belief in the Omnissiah creates a warped machine god? What then? So that takes a lot.
Yeah.
The creation of a god isn't just by... Would it... I don't think a world could create a god, but then you have like Khorne being created by like humanity in a sense, and then Slaanesh created by just the Eldar. So I guess it could happen, but I don't know. I feel like there's too many different types of thinkings with the Adeptus Mechanicus. Like you have the cult of the dragon, and who even knows if the Omnissiah that they're praying to is a different entity than that of the Emperor, which was originally how it should have been intended, or what the Emperor kind of wanted to.
Yeah, and I think the key there is like there's a big difference between the way all of the other races worship their god and the way the Omnissiah worships his, because as a priesthood member, or like somebody from like the Adeptus Mechanicus, you are following the quest for knowledge, which appeases the Omnissiah. That quest for knowledge is almost like, I don't know too much about religions and stuff, but it's almost like the difference between Buddhism, which is a way of life and like an understanding, and Christianity. Christianity, you're worshiping Jesus, but with Buddhism, you're not necessarily worshiping the Buddha. He's just the enlightened one. So
right.
he achieved that, but you're trying to, I guess, walk in his footsteps. Whereas like in Christianity, it's just a straight up devotion to Jesus. They still say like, what would Jesus do and stuff like that.
Right.
But if you actually read the Bible, like you're not supposed to have the same burden as he did. He sacrificed himself, but then that gets really into it. But that's the main big difference.
Yeah.
It's like two different religions that aren't really like creating an individual god. It's just kind of like a quest for knowledge. So I think it would be in a certain scenario that would happen. I feel like there would have to be so many Adeptus Mechanicus Forge worlds that worship, like you said, one specific doctrine of the priesthood or whatever it's called.
Right.
Yeah.
So probably not.
Yeah. Next question comes from that's not right here. Miguel Perez. If Blood Angels ate the dead body of a Custodes, would their combat abilities skyrocket like they did when they used to eat members of the Revenant Legion?
Probably a little bit, because then they'll learn certain like fighting stances that they didn't know and whatnot. Because that's the thing. Whenever Space Marines eat things, they get the memories of whatever they've eaten. And obviously, if you're eating the memories of one of the best fighters that the Imperium has to offer, you're going to learn a few secrets here and there. And especially with the 9th edition stuff, we've learned that the Adeptus Custodes have fighting stances and katas at their disposal to basically fight and like defend and parry and do all this kind of crazy stuff. So yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
But the difference is like the physique of a Space Marine would only get them so far, whereas like an Adeptus Custode, their brain reacts faster, their muscles move and punch harder and stuff like that. So
it's not like Space Jam when all those little like monster slugs touched the basketball and they just became like monsters.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just like them touching the basketball, learning all the skills, but still being worms.
Right, to the point where it doesn't matter if they know how to shoot a three-pointer when they can't even pick up the ball.
That's true.
Yeah. It's kind of like being an actual player and a coach. The coach knows all the ins and outs, but he's older. Yeah, overweight, older. He's past his prime. That's
depressed.
Kind of how, yeah. Well, I don't know. They may not all be depressed.
Maybe. I know that some of the soccer, or I guess I should say football, coaches are like almost as athletic as the actual players because they were players, which I found like kind of interesting. Whereas like you look at football coaches, like American football, and yeah, they pretty much are all overweight.
Yeah, I was thinking basketball, and a lot of those used to be basketball players too. So
yeah, but they also let themselves go.
Because at that point, they're not required. They're not getting paid to be physically fit and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
They're paid to coach. Simon T. says, does mass media exist in the 40K galaxy? Like, do hive cities have TV channels, newspapers, radio stations? And if so, what do they produce?
Yes, they do. They're not interconnected. So like a hive planet will probably just have like mass media on that hive planet, usually like propaganda to control whatever the planetary governor's agenda is. And that's when you get like Genestealer cults that infiltrate that kind of stuff. So you do have guerrilla warfare, but in terms of like publishing and like trying to broadcast themselves. I think there's even like a special character for that, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, so even with like hive cities and gangs and stuff like that, they will overtake like a spire and transmit their own message, like, you know, down with the imperial governor or whatever.
Yeah. But then when it comes to like planet to planet, maybe in a system, maybe even a subsector, but I think when you do like sector to sector, or especially segmentum to segmentum, that's when you start to run into the problem of like, no, only astropaths would be able to communicate that way, and astropaths are kind of controlled by their whole little governing body. So that's really just to pass messages, like important messages, like, hey, we're being attacked by orcs, please send help. Yeah. And then 5 years later.
Yeah, 5 years. That's more reasonable instead of 3 months. If it's 3 months, then they came here quick.
Yeah. Next question comes from Destonk333. Do Necrons have the same effect as a blink, so demons won't see them?
Necrons? Well, I guess so, because, yeah, they're not really
soulless.
They're soulless.
But you're the one that was saying that there's a big difference between pariah, blank, and null.
Right, based on the strength, the power of their actual genes, I guess you could say. So yeah, because there are some where it's like, yeah, just by looking at them, you feel uneasy. And there are some that if you are a psyker and you're anywhere near them, you'll die. Because that's how strong of a presence they have.
And the Necrons are more just like, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
They're not a shadow in the warp either. Because they're too small, but like, kind of the same. Because then wouldn't that just mean that every single non-psychic thing has a shadow in the warp,
Right.
but it doesn't. So it's weird.
Savior X1. When is the Fortifacts Lore on Abella Danger?
Soon. I think she was my favorite for a while.
And then Adeptus Astartes says they need to do the Bridget B episode first.
Yeah. Fortifacts Lore and Bridget B. I don't know. I've seen her Instagram posts, and I don't know. I think that phase is over, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's time to turn over a new page.
Abella Danger. Even though that was kind of far. What is like a modern, like, oh yeah, that's a girl that's on the hub? I don't.
Yeah, it's like the only thing I could think of is like Mia, but that was even like back then.
And she only did like 3.
Right.
Or so I heard. I don't know. Comment down below which one's your favorite P star.
Mm-hmm.
P star. It's not like that.
Oh, this one's by Adeptus Astartes too. Why was Lehman Russ always beating the crap out of the other Primarchs for no reason?
Anger issues. Remember that that the Primarchs are supposed to be representing a certain theme or style or something of the Emperor, and Lehman Russ is like aggression.
Right. Whereas Angron is anger.
Well, Angron is like offensive, like I'm gonna destroy you, kind of like I'm gonna fight you.
Mm-hmm.
Lehman Russ is more feral, like
instinctual anger, like
don't touch
primal.
me. Yeah, or like like a unit is cornered. What are they gonna do? They're gonna fight their way out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
kind of like a wounded animal.
Yeah,
it's backed into a corner.
Forgot to shave.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the Forge World motto of Lehman Russ, he shaved.
Yeah, I always pictured him with a beard.
Yeah.
He dropped the ball on that one, Forge World.
Again. Next question.
Gfish17 says, after the orcs fought against the Tyranids, how many have become quarks?
So you should check out my 40 Facts and Lore on the Brain Boys, or I think it's 40 Facts and Lore on the Cork. But basically, to sum all that up, the Cork are just Blood Axe gang or clan leaders in control of all of the orcs, and they were called Cork. And then they had the big party, which is when all of the factions fought against each other, and finally the Blood Axe gang or Blood Axe clan fell, and everybody was for themselves. So the Goths, Evil Sons, all of that kind of developed. Mm-hmm. Because the Blood Axe gang members, they have this disposition to a very like militaristic mind of like, let's make sure that our supply lines are always intact, let's make sure that our orcs are always in line, and if not, kill them, because might makes right still in that society. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was the only difference. So the Cork were not a special species, they were just Blood Axe clan in control of all other clans.
The clan above all clans.
Right. Next question.
Morberus. Which loyal Space Marine chapter is the most heretical?
I feel like you want us to say Dark Angels.
I was gonna say was it the Flesh Terrors?
Yeah.
Because they're borderline Khorne like followers.
They were eating people, like citizens, imperial citizens.
Maybe they just wanted to get some information out of them.
Yeah, sure.
And instead of asking them, they were just like, let me take a bite out of crime.
Yeah. What's your secret to making your Grox bread? They should come out with a 40K cookbook. So instead of sending or selling these plushies that get recalled, why did they get recalled?
The little like balls and stuff that hang on the antlers and stuff. Like they could fall off and kids choke on them and stuff.
Does that mean that happened?
I assumed it happened.
That's terrifying. But instead of that, they should just make a cookbook. You can't really kill anybody with a cookbook. Unless they're allergic to peanuts. Yeah. Next question.
This one is by Onan, son of Judah, brother of Ur. If Alex Jones discovered a Genestealer cult, lizard people, in America, would you believe him?
No, not initially. No.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what he did.
yeah, that sounds plausible, or like something like that did happen. No, I think nowadays too many people would just brush it off as like a conspiracy, or they're just crazy, or they're just trying to sell NFTs or something. So it's always some type of gain for the person, so that kind of leads people astray.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy about that? Because this morning I was driving behind one of those Q people, like the ones that have like the little QAnon bumper stickers. And the dude looked crazy. He was on me. He was just in his car and stuff, but he didn't look like he was all there. And it just made me realize that with that whole thing, like they did a documentary and they proved, or they showed who was probably behind it. But at this point, it's so like wide and such a like well-known conspiracy theory and like community that even if people like if a person were to stand up and be like, yeah, it was me, I'm sorry guys, they would not believe them. Yeah. And it would continue, which it has, it's still continuing, because other people pick up the mantle. And again, it goes back to like what you were saying, where like they have things to profit from, they have NFTs to sell or whatever, and then they pick up that flag and then they just keep going. So it's a thing that keeps going and going until it becomes a religion.
Right.
So that's crazy. And I think that's what happens usually with like Genestealers too, where like Alex Jones would say there's a Genestealer cult within like America, and then people would just think it's lizard people, and then it becomes a beast all in its own.
Yeah. Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Meta.
Next question.
So he's got a part 2. Could a Genestealer cult use a global pandemic and vaccine mandates to infect and convert an entire population into the submission of an approaching tyrannid swarm?
I don't think... that could be one way. Because like what a Genestealer cult is trying to do is make the population as docile to the invading Tyrannid fleet. And to do that, like, yeah, if they found a way to get like that vaccine to actually like brainwash them into believing that it's, what do they call it? The Great Devourer? No, it's not the Great Devourer. The Great Tendril, the Great Hive, some.
The Great Devourer sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like to say like, okay, the Great Devourer is our savior. He's our god. So yeah, a vaccine that does that, or like some mind control thing that's disguised as a vaccine could work.
I don't see that being necessary, because based on what the Tyrannids are, like, how are we supposed to defend against that?
Yeah.
Like, to me, whenever I think of the Genestealer cults and, like, Tyrannids, it's like, why are the Genestealer cults even a thing? Like, when you look at these planets, I'm like, there's no way this planet can defend itself already. Why even send out Genestealers to infiltrate?
Yeah, that's true. I think it's up to the... so the Genestealers would be... It would, if it's a smart Genestealer cult, it would really infiltrate the people in power. So that when the Hive Fleet arrives, no nukes are released.
Right.
Yeah. All of us, like, we're nothing to them.
Yeah.
In this type of environment that we're in. We're like, what are we going to go out there with our, like, guns and shoot down the Tyranids? Like, no. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it does make sense, because, yeah, if they nuke the world, then obviously the radiation would affect the biomass, which would be less food for the Great Devourer.
Yeah. Another thing, because you did mention the Zuckerberg thing. What if it's like a WAAAGH type of situation where Zuckerberg is some type of Genestealer something or another. He's creating the metaverse so that we sit on chairs and just exist in a completely different world while like machines feed us food and we get all fat like in WALL-E.
Like a farm.
So when the the Tyranids come up, we have more biomass in the form of our asses.
I second that opinion. WALL-E, the pre-40K movie.
Yeah. And then last question will be by Brian B. He asks, who is the best Commissar? I think Yarrick.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before. Yarrick's pretty badass. Even being like an old guy who like lost his arm, lost his eye, should have died so many times, like knowing that Gaskell thinks so highly of him, that sits pretty high up there in my book.
Yep. He's done. And those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, this has been The Sound Alchemist.
Gershwan.
And we are out.
to put my freedom first in any situation.